is a dacoit named Ratnakar, and by the mercy of Narada, he became Valmiki. And then we heard another one from Ananda Ramayana, very long one, and he was previously a Brahmana, and he became then a low-class person that was rescued by the Sapta Rishis. And for those of you that don't know what the Sapta Rishis are, don't worry about it. There's 7 great rishis who are sons of Brahma, and they transformed this robber into Valmiki. So that was a little quick summary of who is Valmiki. He's the author of this Ramayana in all of these different verses. And we're going to go now to the composition of Valmiki Ramayana itself. Very first verse of Valmiki Ramayana is a conversation between Valmiki and Narada. At this point in time, Valmiki is already a learned scholar, and a great personality. In this very first verse of the first part of Valmiki Ramayana, it doesn't say who he was and how he became Valmiki. It just starts with he's done his asceticism and he's asking questions of Narada. That's the curtain opens, and that's what you see on stage. Valmiki, this is the translation of that first verse. The ascetic questioned the eloquent Narada, foremost among sages, always devoted to austerities and study of the sacred text. That's the first verse. So the scene is pictured here. It's Narada visiting the ashram of Valmiki. So on the right, that's Narada because he's got the Veena, right? And facing him directly is Valmiki, and seated next to him is Bharadraj Muni. We're going to hear something a little bit more. Bharadraj Muni was his student or disciple, and he's involved in the Valmiki Ramayana. So starting with the very second verse is Valmiki is contemplating who is a hero. Now it says 18 characteristics, Valmiki, it's wrong. It's 16 characteristics of a great hero. And it gives the Sanskrit terms and who is that person? This is Valmiki's meditation, and he's asking this of Narada. In response, Narada gives 74 verses where the entire story of Ramayana is narrated in the summation. In the painting you see over on the right side, that's Sita Ram with his bow. On the left side, that's Narada with his Veena speaking to Valmiki. He's giving a summary. Now the summary that he's giving to Valmiki is tiny. The version that Narada heard from his spiritual master is 1 billion. It's a big number. And his spiritual master is Brahma. Brahma received it from Vishnu. And so but Valmiki is going to write, this is important, it's an already existing eternal literature like the Vedas are eternal. The Vedas are written down by Vyas. Before they were written down, they were present in oral tradition. This oral tradition was between Vishnu, Brahma, and Narada. And then Valmiki is writing down 24,000 verses, the Valmiki Ramayana. But it's being summarized in disciplic succession by Narada Muni. And then Narada Muni gives an instruction to Valmiki that he should meditate on Lord Ram and write a book about the fruit of his meditation. Now, he hasn't, at this point, Valmiki has not yet met Ram. He's only heard He's done his chanting of Ram's name, and he's heard 24 verses, 74 verses, excuse me, from Narada. But it's coming from his realization, and his realization is what we're going to hear. This is what Narada says. Whoever reads this history of Rama, which is purifying, destructive of sin, holy, and the equal of the Vedas, is freed from all sins. Man who reads this Ramayana story, which leads to long life, will, after death, rejoice in heaven together with his sons, grandsons, and descendants. A Brahmana who reads it becomes eloquent. A Kshatriya becomes a lord of the earth. A Vaishya acquires profit from his goods, and even a lowly Shudra achieves greatness. So that's kind of like the part. There's a document that you were supposed to have received titled Phala Stuti. Stuti means prayers. Phala means fruit. It's Phala Stuti means what's the benefit that you derive from something in a short statement. So this is one of those. And the painting shows on the left, they're having their discussion. On the lower right, Valmiki is offering his obeisances and respects for Narada. And the upper right, Narada goes specifically, it says in Valmiki Ramayana, he went to Brahmaloka. So Narada's gone. We're still in the very beginning of Valmiki Ramayana, and hearing from Narada for one muhurta, which is 48 minutes, he's sitting in meditation upon what he heard from Narada, and then he goes to perform his morning duties. And when he goes to perform his morning duties, our commentators make a big deal about the fact that his ashram was at a confluence of two rivers, the Sarayu and the Tamasa. And he normally went to the Sarayu, and this particular morning he went to the Tamasa, means something's up. There's a plan of the Supreme Lord. And when he goes with Bharadwaj. And as he's entering the river to take his morning bath, he sees two krancha birds. Krancha doesn't have a really good translation into English. It's sometimes translated as crane. So a krancha bird, and they're mating, and he's appreciating the scene, and suddenly from some unseen place comes this arrow, and it shoots into the body of the male krancha bird, and he dies. And the female krancha bird piteously wails. So there's Valmiki uttering this, what we've heard already. This is the Mangala Charana verse of the entire Ramayana, and it's filled with shoka, or sadness. Oh, hunter, because you have killed the male bird and separated it from its companion when they were approaching the peak of their passion, you will be condemned for all ages to come. Let all inauspiciousness befall you. Now, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I've heard from those that are. And the particular meter is a celebrated meter called Anushtup meter. It's 38 syllables, and following that Anushtup meter, many other literatures like Bhagavad Gita follow the same meter. Each of the meters, for those who are poetic in inclination, they're recited according to different meters or melodies and so forth, and ways of chanting. And this is a celebrated meter. Valmiki later speaks, right, in Valmiki Ramayana, that this is a shloka that arose from shoka. And as he's walking away from the scene, he is bewildered. And he's bewildered, as this is from Google. This is supposed to be a painting of his Bhardraj Muni, his assistant. Bhardraj noticed how his spiritual master's emotions, while contemplating the sloka of Shoka, had swung from intense rage when he spoke it. He was really angry. Then he felt really surprised. He's a self-controlled sage, and sages don't burst out in anger like this. And then he started, the words kept going in his mind over and over and over again. And although it was filled with some sadness, he was enjoying the Sanskrit of the verse. Specifically, Bhardraj was seeing all this and hearing all this, and he was a good disciple. He wasn't judging what Valmiki, these changes of Valmiki. When he reached his ashram, Lord Brahma came. Now, Brahma is the spiritual master of Narada, and in the painting you see on the far right, that's Valmiki and his Bhardraj Muni, like a short one, Bhardraj Muni. You know, the Krancha bird with the arrow inside, and he's speaking this condemnation of the hunter. And in the middle, they're coming back to the ashram, and on the left side, he's at the ashram, and the Lord Brahma visits. And Lord Brahma sees Valmiki in this bewildered state, emotional, moving, because he's a sage, he's like steady, and he's moving and moving. So something's going on. So Brahma says, this is directly from Ramayana, don't you know that it was at my direction that Saraswati, the goddess of speech, uttered through your lips the seeming curse? The words that cause your innocent heart a world of anxiety shall bring unto you boundless fame. Doubt no more. Dive deep, to be deeply, into the story of Ram, even as you have heard it from my son Narada. What nobler subject for your poem than Sri Ramachandra, the divine hero, the soul of righteousness, the perfect embodiment of all that is good and great. There's a similar comment that comes in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's writing. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote elaborately on Srimad Bhagavatam, commentary for nearly every verse. And when he comments the utterance of Hiranyakashipu towards Prahlad, and when he comments on Jarasanda's insult of Krishna, the Sanskrit can be read as an insult, and the Sanskrit can be read as a glorification. And Vishwanath says it was Goddess Saraswati that had them speak the words that they spoke. They're actually glorifications, respectively, of Prahlad and Krishna. And that similarly, Saraswati inspired Valmiki to speak what sounded like the curse of the hunter, but it's the essence of the whole Ramayana. So here in the painting, this is Brahma on the left side visiting the sage, and the sage is then speaking to Bhardraj Muni, and later Bhardraj Muni is relaying this to others. So he is, it's how Valmiki Ramayana was composed. Brahma speaks the following words. For all that befell Ram, Lakshman, Sita, men and monkeys, gods and rakshasas, their acts, their words, and even their very thoughts, known or secret, whether in public or private, will be revealed to you. He's getting his benediction. Nothing that comes out of your mouth, consciously or otherwise, shall be false. Now, compose the holy story of Ram, fashioned into shlokas to delight the hearts of men, perfect in its rhythm and melodious in its flow. These are just direct quotes from Brahma's words before he departs. Uh, Here in this painting, this is a B.G. Sharma painting, nice one. On the upper left, that's Lord Brahma giving some parting words before he leaves. In the background, carefully you can see the hunter shooting his arrow, the concha birds being hit by the arrow, and that's the meditation of Valmiki. Brahma gives this blessing or benediction that this poem will be flawless for as long as mountains and rivers flourish on earth. The legend of Ram will flourish in this world. And for as long as the Ramayana flourishes, the world will know and celebrate you along with the Ramayana. So it's Valmiki Ramayana. And that's how it's who Valmiki is and how all of this began. We don't hear so much about Valmiki until later. When Ram is heading for Chitrakoot, he stops at Valmiki's ashram. Valmiki recommends he goes to Chitrakoot. And after Chitrakoot, we don't hear much about Valmiki again until Sita is sent by Lakshman to take residence or shelter in Valmiki's ashram. And there, the two children, Love and Kush, are born. And there's a whole section about how he performs the rituals connected with the birth ceremony. And in course of time, he gives Diksha to Love and Kush. After completing the Ramayana, then comes the contemplation how to propagate it. So he sees these two boys and considers they're the best. So he teaches them because Ramayana, we heard, it's meant to be sung. It's composed in such a way it's meant to be sung with musical accompaniment and percussion instruments and so forth. So he trained them in musical instruments and trained them, of course, on all of the Vedas and gave them the opportunity to be very, very, very skilled in presenting Ramayana to the world. And not only he presented it to the world, but he, in the course of his travels, he even went to Ayodhya. Now this is after Sita had departed the world, but there was arrangement. Ram initially didn't even know who these two young boys were. Later he finds out they're his sons. Later they become the next king. But Kush and Love are shown singing. They're little boys in the center, in front of a sacrificial fire. That's right in front of them. Over in the back side, there's Ram and his ministers. And over on the left side in the back, that's Valmiki and the sages that accompany him. So Valmiki did go to Ayodhya, and that's about it over here of Valmiki from Valmiki Ramayana. In Rupa Goswami's writings, some of you are familiar with one of his books, which is BBT translated and published, called Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Laghu means light. And Bhagavatamrita is a glorification of the Bhagavatam. It makes reference in Vayu Purana that Valmiki was Vedavyas in the 24th Chatra Yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu. What does that mean? It means that in each of the 4 cycles of the yugas, after Dwarf Yuga comes Kali Yuga, and when Dwarf Yuga switches to Kali Yuga, someone has to take the role, the service of compiling the Vedas. So in the 24th Yuga cycle, he, Valmiki, became Vedavyas. That's according to Vayu Purana, cited by Rupa Goswami. Here's the cover of this Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And there, Rupa Goswami writes, splendid as a new blade of Durva grass, that's green, Ram's color is green, and accompanied by Sumitra's two sons and by Bharata, Ram appeared in the Treta Yuga of the 24th Chatra Yuga as the son of Kaushalya and Dasaratha. Now, maybe some of you were thinking, as I was thinking for many, many years, that Ramachandra his pastimes take place in Treta Yuga, then comes Dwapara Yuga when Krishna appears, and then comes Kali Yuga when Lord Chaitanya appears. But it's not like that. What it is this is when Krishna appears is the 28th Yuga cycle during Vaivasvata Manu. And 4 Yuga cycles previous, the 24th Yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu is when Rama appears. So Ramayana has been around for several Yuga cycles. But Lord Brahma gave this benediction that it would last for as long as the mountains last. Now there's partial devastation, the mountains are destroyed. But then there's another day of Brahma and there's another appearance of Ram. And there's another Ramayana to tell his story. And that's our little explanation of the first personality in this personalities from Ramayana presentation. Now, we had some time for some questions during the earlier session, but what I was planning to do this evening is to go to the next personality, and we'll see how far we get. I don't think we're going to get to complete the story of Hanuman. My plan in this whole time spent here in Portland is there'll be 3 sessions about Hanuman, and this session is going to end at Sundarakanda. Sundarakanda is where Hanuman makes his leap to go across Sri Lanka. And so this session will cover up to that. So his birth, and when he meets in Ram and Lakshman at Rishimukh mountain, so the 4th Kanda. So we're accustomed to Srimad Bhagavatam having cantos. And in fact, in one lecture, Srila Prabhupada used the word cantos. Ramayana has 7 cantos. It's kandas, but he used the word cantos. So it's his childhood up until his marriage and returns to Ayodhya. Then his life in Ayodhya, and his being banished and going through the forest, Chitrakoot included. And then the forest, Aranyakanda. And then there's the meeting of Sugriva and Hanuman, and that's Kishkindakanda. So we're going to go up through Kishkindakanda by probably the end of tomorrow morning. Now, if you're not familiar with Ramayana, all this terminology is just like puzzling, probably. My apologies, because I can't make it more simple. Yes. So we're going to now discuss Hanuman. So I'm calling this Hanuman Part 1. We'll hear about Hanuman's appearance shortly. but he's an eternal associate. We know of Hanuman especially as being the perfection of service. We're accustomed to hearing our Gaudiya Acharyas and Rupa Goswami, principal amongst them, when he lists the 9 rasas, when it comes to Dasya rasa, 9 processes of bhakti. 9 processes of bhakti. Most of them are filled with persons who are in Krishna Lila. But when it comes to Dasya, it's not Krishna Lila, it's Hanuman, because he's the perfect example of service. According to Valmiki Ramayana and according to Srimad Bhagavatam, for the duration of the universe, not just for the mountains to cease, for the duration of the universe, Hanuman is continually reciting the glories of Rama. That's his love. Many of you have seen this celebrated painting where Hanuman opens up his chest and shows Ram and Sita inside. It's not in Valmiki Ramayana. But with some research, I came to find out where is it. And it's in this Ramayana, one of the PDFs you got, list of some of the different Ramayanas, and it's from Kritivasi Ramayana. And Kritivasi Ramayana is written in Bengali by a poet named Kritivasa. But this is where this narration comes from, where he's opening his chest and showing Ram inside. So I can read it or I can summarize it. Nice either way. Here's the summary. I'll read. After Ram's coronation, Lakshman made fun of Hanuman as he started breaking and chewing the gems of the precious necklace that Sita had just gifted him. Upon Ram's prompting, Hanuman explains that he couldn't find Ram's name anywhere on the necklace, and such a necklace was worthless to him. Lakshman then questions Hanuman as to how he's able to live with a body that has Ram Nam nowhere written on it. This incites Hanuman to tear apart his chest and reveal Ram's name written on every one of the bones. That's for this one. So there's the coronation, and then after the coronation, there's the procedure that cultured people do. They give gifts to everybody who's present. And when it came to Sita's opportunity, she had this very, very special necklace. I'll read. It's really nice. It was of immense value. No one could value it in the universe. The very sight of the necklace, its hara, kept all the people amazed, and they started looking at one another. It had in it many gems, pearls, and precious stones. All the chief warriors looked at each other as to who would get that hara. To whom the hara is to be presented? Thinking in her mind, Sita looked toward Ram and understood that he desired it to be given to anyone she liked. She understood Ram's intention. When everything was in the dark and no trace of Sita was available, who searched for her? When all of us were dead, who brought back to life all of us? Considering all these facts, the hara should be given to such a person by which no one would feel small. Janaki then repeatedly looked toward Hanuman, who rushed towards Janaki and wore the hara around his neck. The neck of Maruti was decorated with it. Hanuman then bowed at the feet of Janaki. Thus she blessed him. You will enjoy eternal life and always remain free from pain and grief. The glory of Ram will last till the sun and moon illumine the universe, and you will remain eternal. O Hanuman, I give this boon to you. Wherever there would be the recitation of the name of Ram, you would be present at that place irrespective of the distance. Till that time, the recitation continues. Holding the hara in his hand, Hanuman broke each and every gem by chewing it. Lakshman laughed at this act of Hanuman. Annoyed, Lakshman spoke these words. Oh, Hanuman spoke this word. Lakshman spoke to Ram. O Lord, I submit. Why have you adorned the neck of Hanuman with this garland? These monkeys, by nature, are counted amongst the animals. Why did you give this hara of gems to a monkey? Sri Ram said, Oh, listen, Lakshman, you are dearer to me than my life. The reason for which Hanuman has broken the pearls of the hara is well known to him. You better ask Hanuman the reason for it. In the presence of the entire court, Hanuman said, Listen, O Lord of Lakshman, I received this hara, taking it to be priceless. Thereafter, I found that Ram's name is nowhere to be found on it. The riches within the name of Ram have no value for me and should be discarded. Lakshman then observed, Oh Hanuman, the name of Ram does not appear over your body. And why are you keeping this body alive, O son of the wind god? Put an end to this body as well. On hearing this, Hanuman tore away his chest with his nails and projected it towards Lakshmana. After tearing out his chest before the audience, he projected that the name of Ram was inscribed in lakhs over each and every bone of his body. All the people present there were surprised. You can imagine. Lakshman, however, felt ashamed and bowed his head. Lakshman said, Oh, brave Hanuman, listen. There is no other devotee of Ram like you. You know Ram, and Ram is known to you. How could I know the limits of your glory? Hanuman said, I'm a forest monkey. I'm the slave of Ram, the servant to you. Ram is amused at the talk of Hanuman. That's the story behind this celebrated, and it's painted so many times. Hanuman opening up his chest. It's from this Pratibhasi Ramayana. And there's another section that's found, as you see on the screen here, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 9, text 11, where Srila Prabhupada is quoting from Adhyatma Ramayana. And Adhyatma Ramayana is a section of one of the Puranas, I forget which of the Puranas, Brahmanda Purana, Bhavishya Purana, one of the Puranas. And there are 5 chapters, according to what Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, describing deity worship of Lord Ram even before Ram appeared. And in that Adhyatma Ramayana, it narrates the story of this particular, this is just from the internet, it's not the particular same deities. But during Lord Ramachandra's time, there was a Brahmana who was in the practice of fasting until he could see Ram. It was his sadhana. However, when Ram left Ayodhya to take care of some personal matters, business or something, he would fast completely even from water until he returned. And this happened several times, and it came to Ram's attention that he was fasting until he saw him. So Ram instructed Lakshman to fashion deities of himself and Sita and give them to this Brahmana. So that's what Lakshman did. And the Brahmana worshipped the deities throughout his life, but he had no children. And so he gave the deity, this is Adhyatma Ramayana, he gave the deity to Hanuman. And according to Adhyatma Ramayana, when Hanuman left this world, now the Bhagavatam and Valmiki Ramayana say he doesn't, but Adhyatma Ramayana said when he left this world from the Gandhamanana mountain, he turned the deity over to Bhima. And Bhima then took the deity back to the palace and in Hastinapur, and there he worshipped the deity personally, and in the lineage coming from um, the line of kings, it was continually worshipped until the final king in that line, Shema Kanta, then gave the deity, Sitaram deity, to the kings of Orissa. And the kings of Orissa maintained the worship of the deity until 2 weeks before Madhvacharya left this world. They brought the deity to Madhvacharya, and to this very day, Prabhupada writes, the same deity that was given by Lakshman to this Brahmana is being worshipped in uh, Madhvacharya's ashram, Udupi. Some of you know there's 9 ashrams. There's Krishna Udupi is at the center, and other Vishnu tattvas are surrounding. The other 8 and other mats are surrounding. So the place where Sita Ram deities, if you go to um, Udupi someday, go see them. The deities of Lakshmana, etc. We celebrate the deities. So this is just one of the things, is to say Adhyatma Ramayana is an acknowledged Ramayana by our acharyas. Now Prabhupada is quoting this, most likely Bhakti Siddhanta, and most likely prior to him Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Sanatana Goswami quotes this Adhyatma Ramayana, so it's another respected Ramayana, and Hanuman's involved. So the appearance of Hanuman has to do with the appearance of the 4 brothers, Ram, Lakshman, Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Bharata, and Shatrughna. So you know the story. Anybody here not know the story of Ramachandra and his appearance? Don't know? Dasaratha was the king of Ayodhya. Dasaratha is in the line of the Sun dynasty, or the Ikshvaku dynasty. You know about Ikshvaku from Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna taught the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to the sun god, Vivaswan. Vivaswan taught it to his son, Vivaswata Manu. Manu taught it to Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku brought it to this earth planet and established the Sun dynasty. And the capital was Ayodhya. It was known by another name before Ayodhya, but Ayodhya was the capital of the Sun dynasty. And Dasaratha was in that Sun dynasty. And he ruled for a long, 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 long time. And he had no sons. And there was an arrangement so he could have sons. It's a long narration in Ramayana how that happened. And while there was a yajna being performed that would make it possible for him to have sons, because that's necessary for a king to pass on the throne to sons, become the next heir. So a rishi, a sage, was performing the yajna, and while he was performing the yajna, the demigods were assembled to receive the offerings of oblations into the yajna fire, because during those days, it doesn't happen in Kali Yuga, but during those days, the demigods would actually physically appear and receive the oblations performed by the priests. So they were assembled in the sky, and they were having some discussion with Brahma in particular, saying, Brahma, you made these promises to Ravana that he couldn't be killed by us or did so many other things. And now he's a tyrant. He's a terror, a global terror, a universal terrorist. He's defeated many of us, and he's gone on tour to defeat everybody. And Brahma, you created a mess. Please do something. Please help. So as Brahma, they're approaching Brahma in this way. Lord Vishnu appears in their midst, and he explains, don't worry, very shortly I will appear as 4 sons of Dasaratha, and you should also appear on earth to assist me. So Brahma then gives this instruction to the demigods. I'm going to read the instructions to the demigods. Vishnu is true to his promise. This is um, Brahma speaking to the demigods. Straight from Valmiki Ramayana. Vishnu is true to his promise, valiant and our well-wisher. Procreate soldiers and assistants for him with forms which they can change at will, their offspring. They should be conversant with magical spells, brave, swift as the wind in speed, conversant in politics, endowed with intelligence, equal to Vishnu in prowess, indestructible, conversant with devices, endowed with supernatural bodies, knowledgeable about all types of weapons, and, like the demigods, to partake in the nectar of immortality. In the wombs of the principal Gandharvas and Apsaras, in the daughters of Yakshas and Nagas, in the wombs of bears and Vidyadharas, Kinnaras, and monkeys, beget offspring equal to yourselves in prowess. I have already begotten Jambavan, the chief of the bears, from my mouth. He was born suddenly when I once yawned, and that's reference to something at the beginning of creation, when Madhu and Kaitava was trying to steal the Vedas. It says he was yawning, the Vedas were coming from his mouth and tried to steal the Vedas. And Jambavan was there witnessing the battle between Vishnu and Madhu and Kaitava. So Jambavan was his Brahma's son, and as I've created Brahma, you create other sons. That's the idea. Having been thus instructed by Brahma, they accepted his command and begot sons in the form of monkeys. And then it's a long list of who's the father and who's the son. Because as we're going along, one of the sessions is going to be Bali and Sugriva. Sugriva became the friend of Ram, and uh, Bali was doing to Sugriva what Ravana did to Ram, kidnapped his wife. So there's a long description of who's who. But now when it comes to Hanuman, from the wind god, Vayu was born a glorious monkey named Hanuman, whose body was as strong as a thunderbolt and equal to Garuda in speed. He is the most intelligent and strong of all the various monkeys. The bears, monkeys, and langurs took birth quickly. Each displayed a form, appearance, and prowess like that of the demigod who begot him. They could assume any form at will and were endowed with strength. They could wander wherever they wished. They were like lions and tigers in pride and strength. They could all use boulders as projectiles and mountains as weapons. They all had claws and teeth as weapons and were skilled in the use of various arms. They could shake great mountains and split standing trees. At a swift movement, they could agitate the ocean, who is the Lord of rivers. They could enter into the sky and even catch a cloud. They could even capture mad elephants wandering in the jungle. By their yells, they could cause screeching birds to fall. 1 million of such great-souled monkeys who could assume any form and lead the monkey troops were born. The description is provided that um, immediately as they were conceived, they were born. Kind of mystical how all this happened. So one time, Vayu was traveling about, and he happened to see the worldly incarnation of an Apsara named Punji Katasla. Kastala. Punji Kastala. Now, Punji Kastala was an Apsara that doesn't say how or what happened, but she was cursed to take birth on earth. She took birth as Anjana, monkey, the daughter of a monkey chief named Kunjara, and after some time, Anjana married. She married Keshari, one of the noblest of the monkey chiefs, and they had a son. Their son was Hanuman. Now, how was their son Hanuman if there's Vayu was the father? Well, what happened was one time Vayu saw, because uh, Anjana retained the ability to show any form, and she had special beauty. And one day she was walking on a mountain top. Vayu saw her, became very attracted, and by mystic power, without even touching her, she became pregnant. She was shocked, feeling pregnancy, and Vayu assured her, "Don't worry, very soon a son will be born, and he'll be a great personality." So he's known as the son of Vayu, although her husband is Keshari. And they accepted Hanuman as their child, and they raised him like parents loving will raise. So the, these personalities who became assistants of Ram are called Vanaras. And it's easier to say what a Vanara isn't than what a Vanara is. Vanara is not a human, and Vanara is not a monkey. But the word Vanara is derived from the word Vana, which means forest. They're forest dwelling. They had shapes like monkeys, but they weren't monkeys. They were Vanaras. They weren't humans. They were Vanaras. So some special species or something like that. And so they had human-like capacities of speech and study and so forth. So Hanuman became the son of Anjana, and one of the names that he's known by is Anjana Sutta. Another name is Anjaneya, and he had all these powers that were said to be bestowed by Brahma's benediction or request. And here, this particular painting shows him very much with human features, but more commonly he's shown with monkey features, and he had special powers. So one time his mother set him down to gather some food for him, and as he saw what looked to him like a fruit in the sky, so he went chasing after the fruit in the sky because he was hungry. And he had powers like Vayu, which means he could travel like the wind, because Vayu is the god of the wind. There's many paintings showing this. He's chasing after the sun. There on this painting is the sun god riding in his chariot. Many different artists with their different ways of depicting chasing the sun, soaring through the air, high speed, trying to gather the sun because he's hungry. He thinks it's a big fruit. And as he's traveling like this, there's two versions. One is Indra became agitated and wanted him to stop. He didn't know what was going on. So he sent his thunderbolt weapon and hit Hanuman. And there's another version that shows in this painting. On the upper left, you see the sun, towards the sun. There's the sun, and there's Hanuman soaring towards the sun. Over here is Vayu riding on a deer, following the sun to make sure that he's safe. Here's Hanuman, and this person right here, that's Rahu. Rahu is shown over here. Rahu is just ahead, and he went to Indra saying, "Hey, what's going on? This is my time for devouring the sun, and this monkey came along. Please do something. Please check this monkey." So over here is Indra sending his thunderbolt to stop Hanuman, with the complainant over here is Rahu. And this part of the painting shows he's falling to a mountaintop. Then here he's falling off the mountaintop. So that's the Rahu was complaining to Indra version. So Indra throws his thunderbolt, hits him in the jaw, his jaw breaks. And that's where he got the name Hanuman. It's Hanu is the Sanskrit word for jaw. And many other paintings chasing the sun, Indra hitting him with his thunderbolt, and so on. As he's hit with the thunderbolt, he goes crashing back to Earth. And he's crashing back to Earth. Vayu watches the whole thing, and he comes for a crash landing on the top of a mountain, the mountainside. So Vayu became very angry. This is Valmiki Ramayana, describing the birth of Hanuman. He became very angry, and he withheld the flow of air in the whole universe. And the flow of air in the whole universe was causing everyone to suffocate. And the demigods were also suffocating. Something like what happened with the Dhruva story, they were suffocating. So they then approached Lord Rama to ask him to do something. So on the upper right, up here, this is Lord Brahma being approached by demigods, letting him know we can't breathe, that the whole universe is in trouble, please do something. And over here, Brahma comes to touch. There's over on this part of the painting, that's Vayu with his son, Hanuman, on his lap. Here's Brahma touching the sun, touching Hanuman. Hanuman had crashed. He came back to life or external consciousness. And then Brahma makes this request that this person is going to help us take care of Ravana, because he's come to torment everybody in the heavenly realm and all over the universe. So please give this little monkey, Hanuman, your benedictions. It's really interesting what the benedictions are. So I'm going to read. Brahma said, please give him benedictions. Indra took off his garland and placed it around Hanuman's neck, saying, from this day on, Hanuman shall be invulnerable to my thunderbolt, because his jaw, Hanu, was broken by my thunderbolt. He shall be known by the name Hanuman, he of the great jaw. The sun god then said, I shall bestow upon him three things: 100th part of my brilliance. Also, when he begins to study the scripture, I shall enable him to quickly learn all aspects of knowledge. Now, giving him the ability to learn isn't the same as being his teacher, but later we hear that he was his teacher. If you're going to go to school, sun god be responsible for teaching. Second, none shall exceed him in scriptural understanding. And three, he'll become exceedingly eloquent. Vanu. Yamaraj granted him invulnerability to his rod, freedom from ailment, and the boon of never losing heart in battle. These become important later when he's in battle. Shiva said, he shall be immune to my weapons and from death at my hands. Vishvakarma said, this Vanra shall be invulnerable to all celestial weapons forged by me, and he shall be long-lived. Finally, Brahma said, oh, wind god, your son shall be invincible in battle. He will prove the terror of his foes and the shelter of his friends. This jewel among monkeys shall be able to change his form at will and go wherever he pleases at any speed he likes. No, this is important. No Brahmana's curse will be able to kill him, and he will be immune to all chastisements on the part of the Brahmanas. His movement shall be unimpeded, and he'll become glorious in war. He will accomplish tremendous feats, which make one's hair stand on end, thus causing destruction of Ravana and the pleasure of Rama. Indra was so relieved to see him smiling even after the injury that he gave him the best boon of all, declaring his disappearance will be on his own choosing. He'll be as swift as Garuda and as powerful as Vayu. He and Garuda are twins in might and ability. So that's the demigods offering their benedictions. Vayu becomes happy. He allows the air in the universe to start flowing again. And no, he's a little monkey. Little monkeys do monkey things. And particularly the Brahmanas were disturbed because they were doing yagyas. And then Hanuman, the painting shows, they would come along. He would come along and disrupt their paraphernalia or pull their beards or pass stool or, he would, do wild things. It was very disturbing. And so, and they decided they would not, because they were constrained by what Brahma said about you can't be killed and it can't be cursed. So they made a mantra that he would forget his powers until that time that later somebody reminded him of his powers, and that happened when it came to jumping over to Lanka. And this is the last slide for this evening's presentation. I searched and searched, and for sure in Valmiki Ramayana, I couldn't find it elsewhere either. The circumstances of Brahma becoming his teacher in Vedic wisdom, in Sanskrit and eloquence and all those things, he was his teacher. But we find that he was his teacher when he's reminded of his strength, and he's standing on Mount Mahendra, and he turns to the east and offers his obeisances to his teacher, his Sanskrit and Vedic wisdom teacher, the sun god. So the sun god taught him, and excuse me, it says Brahma. It wasn't Brahma. It was the sun god. The sun god was his instructor. So where we're going to go next is when they first meet one another. When they first meet one another at Rishimukh Mountain. So up to this point, when Ram goes to Sita's been kidnapped, and he's searching for Sita. He's told, go make friendship with Sugriva. He goes to Rishimukh mountain. We don't even hear Hanuman's name until that happens. All these descriptions, um, well, with the exception of the description that Hanuman will be born as the son of Vayu section. You don't even hear Hanuman's name until this section. And from this section onward, he does a very important part. Okay? So we'll hear some more. Okay, so 20 minutes before 8. How is this going? Are people able to hear? Live stream is going. Congratulations. Oh, okay. At least the live stream is going. The sound is okay? Okay. Okay. Any comments or questions or thoughts, especially for new people? It's a little hard to follow. Huh? Completely new. Well, you've heard of Ram before. No. Oh gosh. You've heard of Krishna before. Okay. Along with Krishna, something that we heard the very first day, very first part of the first day, is Ram is an incarnation of Krishna. There's one entity, one supreme person, and that supreme person can manifest himself in various ways to suit loving relationships. So Krishna manifests himself as Ram in a previous age. The Vedic picture of time is the tide moves in cycles, like seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring. Like that. Um, the time when Ramachandra appears at a different age, the duration of life is longer. So, things are different. Just like during different seasons, conditions are different. So Ram appears during a different age, and then much later Krishna appears. But it's one person performing various pastimes. One supreme person performing various pastimes. And in his pastimes, it's loving exchanges, the essence of loving exchanges. And in the course of those loving exchanges, there's emotion or feeling. The sense of the word is rasa. So there's different categories of relationships with Ram. His father and mother, and his dear wife, and his friends and his servants, and etc., etc., etc. And then there's the good guys and the bad guys. There's the reason for his appearing was there was a very, 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 three berries, triple berry, terrible person. His austerity is very powerful and was terrorizing the universe. That the people wanted him to be checked. This terrorist was named Ravana. So Ram appeared to check Ravana. And there's a whole series of things that happen, which include Ravana kidnapping his wife. So Ram searching for his wife, Sita. And Hanuman finds where she is. And then they have to cross 800 miles of ocean to an island, now Ceylon, Lanka is called, and rescue Sita. This big battle, and Sita is rescued. And then Sita comes back with Ram, and he becomes king. It's a long story. And just something that's contemporary. I don't know the detail, but I was told that the script writer for Star Wars, the inspiration was Ramayana, because there's a monkey and a woman who has difficulty in a lot of the scene. I don't know the detail, but it's patterned after Ramayana. It's a very ancient epic, but it's about the Supreme Lord named Ram, who appears to do different things. The main thing is loving exchanges and attracts and teach virtue, because he's the emblem of virtue. So in ancient culture, reciting Ramayana had the effect of instilling in people the value of living a righteous life, because he stood for it. It was always victorious. He would protect anyone who would live their lives accordingly and take shelter of him. So that's a little outline of, then there's details and details. Yeah, well, I honor you for sitting through all this, although it's totally new to you. But my my honor to you for sitting through and learning the way that you're doing this. I had no idea that you didn't know. This presentation it has with the thought in mind for people that have some foundation. Anyway, see if there's any comments or questions from anybody here. Yeah.
Does the Ramayana say anything about Ram or Hanuman's mood towards Ram before he meets Lord Ram? Like, does he actively remember Lord Ram during his early life, or is his devotion inspired when he meets Lord Ram?
His devotion is inspired when he meets. No, their relationship is eternal. But the Leela doesn't indicate at all that he was already aware, he's just waiting for Ram to come, and then Ram comes, and then it's Haribol. Happy times. He recognizes, so there's no indication like that. It's not A, it's B. When he comes before Ram, he is requested by Sugriva to appear not as a monkey, but as a Brahmin. When he comes before Ram as a Brahmin, immediately, this is the Lord of my life. Instantly. And then changes his form from a monkey, from a Brahmin back to a monkey, says who he is. Ram doesn't ask, who are you? He just starts telling him who he is. I'm the servant of Sugriva. I've been sent here as a messenger to see if you're a friend or a foe. I can tell right away you're to be trusted. My master, Sugriva, is in need of help because his wife has been taken. And if you are willing to meet him, I can take you to him. It's like he just blurts it out. He's still in the role of being Sugriva's minister, but it's the kindling of that relationship is just seeing him, and then it starts to go from there.
Hare Krishna. So Hanuman, Ramayana was happened in the 24th Maka Yuga. And Hanuman showed up again in Mahabharata and he met Bhima in the forest. Do you know why he showed up in the Mahabharata? Ramayana was written, in 24th Mahayuga, but the Mahabharata was written in 28th Mahayuga. And Hanuman was in Ramayana, and also he showed up in Mahabharata and met Bhima in the forest. Do you know why he showed up in the forest?
Yeah, I didn't catch all of what you said, but is what you're asking, how is it possible that Bhima saw Hanuman? Because there's so much distance in between. That's your question?
Yes.
Hanuman has a long life.
Yes, but why he showed up? Why?
Why? Well,
Mhm.
because he was given that benediction, you heard. Now, it's not normal that someone has such a long life, but he was given that benediction that he have a long life.
Yes, he has long life, but why he met Bhima? Actually, Bhima looks like he is his brother because they have same father, Vayu.
Yeah, but they didn't have the same mother.
Yes, of course, because it's what in
Vayu, no, this is some detail, but Vayu was the father of both. A great deal of time passed, two different mothers with the same father. So in that sense, brother.
and why he showed up in Mahabharata? Why he wanted to see?
Why not?
Just because, or it was the reason?
He has a here's another one for you. Who Hanuman was on the flag of Arjuna's chariot, and it wasn't just a stitched on emblem. It was Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna, and when needed, Hanuman would come off the flag and do battle to help Arjuna. So he had a role to play. He was interacting with his brother Bhima, and he was helping Arjuna. So he had a role to play. He's a devotee of Rama is a devotee of Krishna. And Arjuna is a devotee of Krishna, so they're buddies. He's helping Arjuna.
Yes, it's just amazing how they go through the centuries.
Yeah, well, we can't do that. But someone that has a benediction for having life for as long as the mountains exist can do that. It's not normal. They have special powers. We don't have. But lots of people have special. Lots of people can do things we can't do. Another?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. I had on similar lines as Mataji said about the Yuga cycle. You mentioned that Lord Rama came in the 24th Yuga cycle.
Yes.
And we are in the 28th. So
yes.
What happened in the Treta Yuga, which was of our Yuga cycle, which was 2 million years ago? Like usually we have been telling people that, Krishna came 5,000 years ago.
Say it slower. Usually what?
When we talk to people, we say that Lord Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, but
Yes.
Lord Rama came 2 million years ago. And even in India, where you have Ayodhya, they are doing archaeological studies to see whether Lord Rama was, with all this controversy around the Ram temple, that Lord Ram was actually there 2 million years ago. But from your presentation, I understood that it didn't even happen 2 million years. Did he not
Yes,
come
it's
2 million years ago? And only in 24th Yuga cycle was the last time he was here?
I can only speak under the authority of Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami says, no. Scholars can say yes. Rupa Goswami says, in the 24th Yuga cycle. I know which one I'm going to go with. So what scholars say and how they're determining what they say and all that, I don't know what that is. They anyway, they're not reading Lago Bhagavatamrita. No, he didn't just pull it out of the air. It comes from scriptural references, as I showed, from Vayu Purana. But Rupa Goswami is citing it and writing it in an authoritative fashion. So, what happened during that? The Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, preceding this particular 28th Yuga cycle. I don't know what happened, but I know what didn't happen. according to Rupa Goswami, Ram didn't appear during that particular Treta Yuga of the 28th millennium of Vaidasvatamana. And I don't have to bother myself with about it further. You know, the scholars can say what they say. And then they'll disagree with other scholars, and that's how it goes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask about when Hanuman opened up his chest to show the name of Ram on all his bones.
Yeah.
If I ever knew that story, I completely forgot it. So he did it because Lakshman was making fun of him. Yes, and how could everyone see that the word of Ram was on all his bones? He just opened his chest.
I don't know how they could see that it was on all of his bones, because when you open up your chest, it doesn't show all of your bones.
Right.
But that's what Pratibhasi Ramayana says. It says that the word that's used is lakhs of names. So at least they could see many, many names. Now, what did that look like? How do you see names on someone's bones? I don't know. I don't know. And normally, the way that it's shown is he opens his chest and shows the form of Ram, because at least this is the way I always thought of it. Ram is in his heart. But this Kritivasa, so I don't know how to answer. Technically speaking, how can you see every one of his bones? But to speak of names on every one of his bones, it'd just be a bunch of blood coming out. That's what you'd see. So I don't have an answer to logistically, technically, what was the technology that was used so you could do that. Don't know. Just know what it says. And I know that that's a very common painting or drawing of Hanuman ripping open his chest and showing. I've wanted to know where's that? Because it's not in Valmiki Ramayana. Where is it? It's well known. That's the best. There may be another one of the Ramayans that shows that I don't know of. He opened his chest and there was, he showed Rama's in my heart. There may be another Ramayana that says that. I don't know. How we doing? Yes? Over here? We have a microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm just amazed at, like you say, that you found out how Hanumanji was the disciple of the sun god from a particular place in the Ramayana. Must be taking like amazing amount of reading and research system, because you even don't know what you're looking for and where you're looking for. I'm just amazed at the depth of research that you gather from various scriptures.
Well, it's not. It wasn't solo. It wasn't solo. There are to give credit where credit is due. There are 3 persons that I'm in touch with. That's actually 5 persons, but there's 3 persons that are very responsive. That are they're profound lovers of Ramayana, and the one that did a lot of this research was Shamakund. For the first yatra that we did, he had a team of people that were taking things from Tamil commentaries and translating into English. And they spent, I forget the number, something like 350 hours of translating. And then they gave it to him and he distilled it down to make it a little easier for me. Then I spent, many, many minutes. So it wasn't solo. Shamkund is one of the main persons. And on an ongoing basis, if some question arises, I bring it up to him. Nityananda Pran in Chicago, and Lal Gopal in St. Louis. And they love Ramayana. They've told it many, many times. So they're principal sources. but I've spent a couple of times, even with what they've given to me.
As my question was another just to follow up. There's very famous pastime we hear in many classes of devotees. That my question would be if you remember or know where it is, in which Ramayana it is. That one time, how does it go? I think Lakshmanji asks Lord Ram that you said if Vibhishan comes or if Ravana comes, you will give him Lanka. So what will you give to Vibhishan? And then Lord Ram says, I will give Ayodhya to Vibhishan. And then he says, what will you give Bharat if you have given to Ayodhya to Vibhishan? And said, I'll give Vaikuntha to Bharat. And then he says, if you give Vaikuntha to Bharat, then where will Hanumanji go? And then he says, or where will you go? And then he says, I will go and sit in the heart of Hanumanji. I have heard this in many classes this past time, or this very nice narration of the mercy
Things
of.
like that may be conventional and not scriptural. And then there's this is a detail that you will probably appreciate. Atihiya. Listen, it's in Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha, Tattva Sandarbha, he describes not only there's three principal ways of knowing things, through direct perception, through logic and reason, through Shabda, he gives 7 more. And those 7 more are subsets of those 3, but one of those is under the of Shabda. But something that may not be, when one doesn't know exactly what the scriptural authority is, but it's something that's commonly accepted, then it can be a type of authority. I'll give an example. I'll give 2 examples. One example is on our Vaishnav calendar, we observe Gopastami. And there's a pastime that Krishna, Radha, and Subal performed on Gopastami. And the pastime goes like this. There's no scriptural reference for it. There's no source that says this is where it's from. But it's a Gopastami pastime that we observe in ISKCON on Gopastami. Krishna and Radha were being checked from meeting. So Krishna was very morose. And Purnamasi came and saw Krishna morose. And she said, I have a solution. Lalita is very good at arranging costumes. To have Lalita send Subal, who has the complexion like Radharani, to Radharani's home. And Subal can say to Jatila, I'm looking for a calf that went astray. May I look inside your house? So, yes, you can look for the calf. He goes to Radharani's quarters. He and Radharani change clothes. Radharani comes out carrying a calf across her chest. And Jatila, says, I'm glad you found your calf. And then Subal is in Radharani's quarters, dressed as Radharani. And so Radharani, with the calf across her chest, can go meet with Krishna. And so at some of our ISKCON temples, they have deities on Gopastami Day. They have a calf in Radharani's arms or across her chest or something to commemorate Gopastami pastime. So that's in this category of nobody knows where the scriptural reference is, but is a commonly accepted pastime. So it's in that category. So this story that you're narrating may be in that category, or it may just be, a popular guy started it, and some other people started repeating it. I mean, I got it. I'll say it. Subha Vilas is a devotee in India, in this time devotee, that writes books on Ramayana, Ram's pastimes. And I was asked, well, actually, I heard him narrating wherever he was, somewhere in the Far East. I forget. Maybe it was Korea or someplace. Hong Kong. Maybe it was Hong Kong. Anyway, he was narrating before an audience. Maybe it was even Melbourne, Australia, something like that. But he was telling how Hanuman was given knowledge by the sun god. There's a long story. And so it was recorded. It was a YouTube recording. And I wrote to him saying, where'd that come from? And he said, I heard it. So then I asked Shamkun to research it. And it turns out it was a story by a popular Ramayana reciter. There's no source at all. It's just his creative speaking. So I said, your books are in people's homes and they take you as an authority. You can't do this. You can't just, he said, well, his explanation was that there's a lot of people out there saying all kinds of things, and I want to be, but ISKCON and Prabhupada stamp on things, so I borrowed some things from some of those sources. And please don't do that in the future. It's already in print. But here, here's the standard. When you're going to speak something, what's the authority behind what you're speaking? So this story, who knows? I wouldn't advise you to repeat it. You want to know where it's from? I'll ask these three people if they know where it's from. And my guess is it's just a popular, Ram Katha reciter says it. And then people start repeating it. It's like this Sagar series of Mahabharata. And he shows things that are just not true. It's just not true. Maharaj Parikshit's up on this big pole, and the snake comes flying through the air and bites him on the big pole. He wasn't hiding on a big pole. Or Kali personified entered his crown, and that's what caused him to put the snake, because the Kali came out of his crown and caused him to put the snake around. I mean, and then people see it and they think that's it. Or kids read the comic books and they think that's it. You know what I'm saying? So my guess is it's one of those. Popular, but there's no basis for it at all. Somebody said it, people repeat it, and that's it. No basis. But I'll ask if there is a basis for it, but I doubt it. Okay, and something else?
No, Maharaj. Thank you so much. This was very wonderful and enlightening.
Send me a little note on your phone, and I'll send you this reference from Tattva Sandarbha of this particular type of authority that can be accepted. There's another example, How Balau. You've heard How Balau? How Balau. Your wife is heard. So How Balau is a story when Krishna was playing with his cowherd boyfriends near Nandagaon, and it was time for lunch. So Krishna wouldn't come. So Mother Jasoda sent Rohini. Rohini said, they're not listening to me. You have to come yourself. So you finish the cooking. So she went, and they wouldn't come. Just ignoring her. And then she decided a trick. Look out, the How Balau are coming. And there was some back and forth. What's the How Balau anyway? No, they have big teeth. So she started running. And then they started following her. And then Later, Krishna said, how Bilal came. She said, Mother just sort of said, I just made it up. There wasn't really any, there's no such thing as a Hal Bilal. And Krishna said, there is, look. Because Krishna didn't want his mother to be a liar. So there was a Hal Bilal coming. And to this day, there's some stone figures of Hal Bilal at the base of Nandagaon. The very same place where Krishna and the cowherd was. So it's a story. It has no scriptural basis, but it's commonly accepted and understood in Vrindavan. And that's one of those, the Hal Bilal. I'll send you the document. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I really loved the benediction that Sita Devi gave to Hanumanji.
Yeah, very sweet.
Bhakti Devi giving back to the heart of the bhakta. Can you read that once more?
What she said to Hanuman,
Yes. When she gave him the heart.
she gave him. Sure. Yeah, but it's not hearing. Oh, here it is. You will enjoy eternal life and always remain free from pain and grief. The glory of Ram will last till the sun and the moon illumine the universe, and you will remain eternal. O Hanuman, I give this boon to you. Wherever there would be the recitation of the name of Ram, you would be present at that place, irrespective of the distance, till that time the recitation continued. I mean, the language, the grammar is not perfect. That's it? Sure.
The slides, you have that Valmiki was the Vedvyas in 24th Yuga cycle. I've always also heard from you that Parashar Muni was the Vedvyas. Was it not the 24th?
Parashar Muni was Vedavyas, two Vedavyasas before Vedavyas.
Yes, but in which cycle was that? Was it not 24th?
No, our Vedavyas is 28th Yuga cycle. In 2 Yuga cycles ago was Parashara. That's 26.
Mentioned that we current 27th Yuga cycle. Is it 28 or is it 27?
What's that?
I think the slides mention that we are currently in 27th Yuga cycle.
Yeah, it probably does say that. I think it's 28th Yuga cycle. I think it's wrong. Okay. Give the Prabhupada key. Good. Your children are really calm. I don't know how you do it or how they do it. Okay. Here's some cookies.